Hello, I'm Nancy Hoyer-Evans, Curriculum Coordinator at iPathways. You've heard the term flipped out a few times. Today, I'd like to talk about flipping out. It makes sense, doesn't it? We're all flipping out a little bit in this pandemic environment. It seems like a perfect opportunity to focus our attention on learning about a different way of teaching, specifically the flipped classroom. Let's start at the beginning. Flipped classrooms were originally called inverted classrooms because the relationship was changed between class time and homework time. Learning was moved from classroom time to individual time via readings or online videos, audio files, or assignments, and classroom time was spent on answering questions, working on projects, and guiding students with more individualized help. You probably already do some of this. Flipped learning is now a recognized pedagogy that looks a little like this. Before class, completing homework, remembering, understanding. During class, applying, analyzing, fine-tuning, understanding. After class, evaluating, creating, applying more confidently, connecting to other learning. If you're a teacher who is constantly reflecting on how your instruction can be improved, first, yay, and then consider flipping. Here are some of the positives. With flipping, it's easier to stay current. It helps today's multitasking learner. It assists those who are struggling with content because they get to spend in-class time addressing those struggles. It also ensures all students can excel by giving them that individualized instruction we all strive for. It allows students to provide feedback instantly and repeat content if necessary. It increases the interaction between teachers and peers, because that's the whole point. It improves teachers' ability to know students' strengths and weaknesses. It magnifies class importance and clarity. The basic premise is that you are trusting your students to cover course content on their own time, so you can spend class time reviewing, clarifying, and putting new information into practice. This is a key point because it can be difficult to let the reins of your class go and believe that your students will spend the time and energy to go over material without you guiding them. This is why, if you're new to flipping, you might want to start with one particular unit or even one lesson, or take it step by step. In one of my advanced composition classes, I did this incrementally. One of my course objectives in this class is to teach students how to identify the claim, the stance of the arguer in an argument, as well as how to look at evidence and decide its credibility, as well as that of its presenter. Then I want them to be able to diagnose why a particular argument is credible or compelling. I decided the best method for regular application of these skills was to watch TED Talks together. I developed a rubric of questions they needed to answer in their written response, then selected short TED Talks with strong arguments. The first several we watched together in class with the one-page writing identifying claim, evidence, warrant, and credibility, as well as any off-putting features, due by the end of class. I graded these quickly and provided quite a bit of feedback on the first couple so they could be sure they were getting the hang of it. Once I was sure the majority of the class knew what I was looking for, I assigned them to watch additional TED Talks on their own, turning in their writings at the start of the next class when we talked about what they'd seen. So essentially, we modeled it in class, then moved it to the flipped environment. The best part was the confidence they grew in the process, learning to dissect the argument, but also trusting themselves to do it on their own once they had some practice. Some of my classroom flipping came about because I was assigned to teach an online class about 3 days before the semester started. I panicked, and as a result, came up with the idea of videotaping my lectures for my online class. I felt that I needed to try to duplicate the in-person experience as much as possible. The online class appreciated it, but future in-person classes did too. It happened with a little bit of creep actually. I made the video of my lecture available on my Blackboard site for those who had missed the class or those who needed to be exposed to the material more than once to truly absorb it. The response was immediate and positive. My students loved to be able to watch it on their own time with fewer distractions and less pressure. Reading quiz scores climbed, and I noticed that they were actually using my definitions for key terms when talking in class. So what had originated as a patch for not enough time to plan became something I stumbled across that is now a consistent part of my course. Flipping isn't for everything or for every class. There are some negative aspects, as you no doubt have figured out. The digital divide is a real thing. In order to flip effectively, it really helps to have access to strong internet signal. Your students may not have this at home, and their local library or coffee shop may not suffice. Maybe they only have 1 or 2 units there to use. It is essential you find out what the connectivity challenges are for your students before you require them to watch videos or do online activities outside of class. It's a matter of trust. You have to build and maintain trust with your students, and they have to validate your trust in them. How can you ensure that your students are engaged enough in the class to do the necessary preparation to make flipping work? Planning, and more planning. Flipping your classroom requires some serious examination of your course preparation. You have to inhabit the seat of the student and determine which lessons, which activities will be served best by in-class or at home. You have to see which of your lectures or lessons can be video or audio taped and uploaded in an easily accessible format. You need to examine your course goals and map a path that helps students find their way in this new format. Test prep? Nah. Flipped classrooms are pretty terrific for helping students learn critical thinking and problem solving. They are not ideal for memorization of terms or concepts. In order to use a flipped classroom for test prep, you will have to be very focused in your design. Can you create games for in-class time that help students learn specific ideas, dates, and skills? It will take some labor on your part to be sure you are meeting their needs. Passive learning. Flipped learning by its very nature will increase screen time if the activities you include require them to be online. More screen time can feel like more passive learning, which has a bad shelf life for retention and can cause students to disengage from the process out of frustration or boredom. You will need to be sure that you design activities that keep this in mind. Can their reading of a play be attending it instead? If you're studying art history, can they have a scavenger hunt that requires them to go to the art museum and draw or take pictures of certain things? If they're learning about water purification, can they take a tour of the water treatment facility and interview staff? Find ways to keep the three-dimensional aspect of your learning whenever possible. In this incredibly stressful time, we can desire nothing more than to fall back on the tried and true. But I urge you instead to use this time for reflection, for examination of your current practices, for seeking an opportunity to flip out. There are some resources available at the end of the broadcast, as well as a checklist from the University of Texas you can use to begin if you want to see what all the excitement is about. It can be very therapeutic to focus your energy on something new. If you've stayed this long, stay a bit longer and check out our website at ipathwayslearninglab.org. We have more resources you might find helpful, and be sure to fill out our questionnaire on what your professional development needs are. We're here to help. Thank you for your time. See you next month.